Well, the Washington Post is up to their anti-veteran bullshit again, and trying to call it accountability. Let's talk about it. So, the Washington Post today, the 14th of October, as I'm recording, I'll probably release an article in response to veteran group responses of their first article that I did a video on that a lot of people seem to like, uh, mostly because I'm an asshole. And I also engage with the comments, pro and con. I don't. I want that. I want you guys to have that space. Agree with me, disagree with me, agree with each other, agree with each other respectfully. It's okay to be a dick sometimes, but bring it back on topic. Those are the ground rules for these particular videos, right? And a lot of you are totally cool with that, by the way, and I appreciate it. So I want you guys to know that. Just know that those are kind of the rules as far as that goes. Okay. So that being said, let's dig into the Washington Post a little bit more. So let's do what normal citizens do when they consume the news, whether it's text news or whether it's on TV. Let's just read the headline. Veterans groups rip post for investigation into VA disability program. Now, that alone, without the subtext, reads like veterans groups are mad at the Washington Post for holding the VA accountable. Now, if you think in any way veterans groups or veterans do not like accountability, you're fucking crazy. Now, have all of us been held accountable? No, right? Just like not everyone at the Washington Post has been held accountable for their stupidity, right? Not everyone in the White House has been held accountable for their stupidity, and God knows not everyone in Congress has been held accountable for their stupidity, okay, or for doing stupid shit, okay? To outright claim that veterans groups rip the Post for investigating the VA, we've been wanting the VA investigated for decades. Where the fuck have you been, WAPO? Honestly, Bezos owns the Washington Post. One of my viewers let me know, in no uncertain terms, that Jeff Bezos owns the Washington Post. Okay, which I did not know. Okay, and then they said that I didn't research, and I was like, "You're a fucking idiot." And then it went back and forth. It was fun, right? You know, like to that viewer, thank you. We had a fun discussion. If Bezos ever gets a hold of my YouTube, first off, I've made it. Second, fix this. Fix shit like this. Okay? Fix sensationalized reporting, right? Because it's not about the truth, right? It's about your little clicks. Right? Bezos ain't gonna fix that. But this, just the headline. Now, I've read the article several times, okay? But just the headline is off the rails. Okay? Just the headline, off the rails. Okay? Veterans groups accuse the Washington Post of overstepping problems with the Department of Veterans Affairs disability compensation system and scapegoating former service members. Now, that's fine, because that's true. Because we were like, well, except for the word overstating. None of us ever said that the VA needed... look, we want the VA to be fixed. None of us overstated shit. You did. Because you didn't state anything. In fact, I would argue you stated lies. You cherry-picked, right? Now, I have released my blog, okay, in response to this already, in my 3 areas that I blog at, Substack, Beehive, and WordPress, okay? My response is out there. I will link them in the description here so you guys can read that, but this conversation will be about that response, okay? That I can promise you. This article is just egregious. Like, who approved this? Who said, yeah, this is a good idea? go ahead and release this for publication. Someone in my comments will say Trump did it, and it'll be funny, and we'll all laugh, right? Someone will say Biden did it, and we'll all laugh, right? This article is outright stupidity. It's written by Greg Whitlock, one of the original authors of the first article from last week, okay? Veterans groups assailed the Washington Post. Oh, scathing word there, assailed, right? For publishing an investigation. That was not an investigation. That was cherry-picking bullshit, right? If that's your definition of investigation, WAPO, quit journalism, okay? Accusing the Post of overstating problems with the program and scapegoating former service members. Nobody said that you overstated the problem. No one, not even me. In fact, we said we know the VA has a problem. We've been saying it for years. Your issue here is that last part. Scapegoating former service members. Not just former service members, outright alluding that all service members engage in fraud. That we are fraudsters that want to defraud the VA and the federal government. Apparently there's 25 years of government data. You didn't go through that, please. Thousands of pages of public documents. You didn't read that. You had staffers do it and give you some bullshit report, and then you came together and said, ooh, let's fuck with people today. Apparently. That's what I'm guessing. Okay? The Post exposed how VA's $193 billion disability program has become prone to rampant exaggeration and fraud. You prove that? Because we already knew it. Good job. You're like Christopher Columbus that said he discovered a new world when somebody was already fucking there. Good job. WAPO, you did nothing. The Post reporting, and I'm reading this little area right here, I'll highlight it. The Post reporting found that veterans advocates, for-profit companies, and VA itself encourage vets to file as many claims as possible to maximize their benefits and milk the system. What? Milk the system? Or because we were told for years to not go to sick call when we were in the service, to ignore symptoms when we were in the service, to be a man, right? Or be tough when we were in the service, that these symptoms piled on top of each other, and now we're paying the price, and now we're trying to get what we deserve, both monetarily and in terms of services. That's not milking the system, Mr. Whitlock, at all. That's filing claims for things that we have. Like underlying issues, supplementary claims. Issues that arise because of issues that we have. For example, and I said this last time, I am permanent and total. Okay? I am permanent and total. I did not know that one of my symptoms led to other things until a doctor outside the VA, because I was sent to community care, talked to me about it. Hey, Jeff, did you know that your PTSD can cause these things? And this is a civilian, quote unquote, doctor. Was I sent to that doctor by the VA or referred to them? Yes, through community care. But are they in the VA and part of the VA structure? No. It's a civilian doctor. And she said, yeah, let's talk about this. Your PTSD is causing your migraines, or can cause your migraines, or can more than likely cause your migraines. So you're telling me I shouldn't benefit in some way with additional care and, yes, compensation because of that? That's wild. Because if that was anyone else other than a veteran, you wouldn't say shit about it. Not a goddamn thing. Not a damn thing. There was another quote here. They do a whole section of this article where they cherry pick quotes from veterans organizations and basically make fun of them. Okay? Carl Blake, the chief executive, Paralyzed Veterans of America, likewise issued a statement that said his group was outraged at the Washington Post decision to paint most veterans with service-connected disabilities as fraudsters and cheats. That's true. That's exactly what you did. So I'm glad you put that on there, because that's exactly what you did. If other groups use more stringent imagery and language, like me, Veterans of Foreign Wars posted on its website a cartoon of a firing squad depicting the Post as an executioner aiming a rifle at veterans. You might as well put the VA next to you, because that's what y'all want to do, right? What's the old saying, veterans, when it comes to the VA? Deny, 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 and wait till they die, right? We all know that fucking saying, right? If you haven't heard it before and you're a veteran, you've heard it now, right? Deny, 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 and wait till they die. Well, now that that seems to be over, or at least lessened, and the VA is listening more, and I'm going to praise the VA. I have never felt more heard when I go to the VA in most cases, okay? Once you get past the bullshit, right? Once you get in and see a doctor, right? My experience, right? And again, we're all different, right? I've never felt more heard. Right? So now we're finally at a point where we're starting to see little gains, little improvements. And now the Washington Post is like, you're all fucking fraudsters. Are you fucking kidding me? Do you not want veterans to have care? Just come out and write an article, WAPO, that says, we do not want veterans to receive care after their service. We do not want veterans to receive compensation and pension after their service for combat-related injuries or service-related issues and injuries. Just write an article that says that, and I'll respect that more. Because at least you won't be lying. So you want more? I'm going to echo the VFW, which I'm not a member of. Okay? Never stepped foot inside a VFW post in my life. Okay? They asked a question. Okay? Coalition of 23 organizations, the big one being the VFW. Would the Post prefer the wounded military personnel to have bled out on the battlefield rather than live and file a disability claim? I would argue yes. That's exactly what the Post is saying here. And is that a little bit of hyperbole? Maybe. Maybe. Right? But I was hoping that the WAPO article was hyperbole, but it's not. They really believe this. Right? Again, does fraud occur with some veterans within the VA system? Yes. But you paint it like it's all of us. Representative Mark Tanaka, Democrat from California, the top Democrat on the House Committee on Veterans Affairs. I'm reading directly from the article for you guys. It's story time with Jeff today. Okay? Criticized the articles for omitting what he called essential context. They put that in quotations, which to me means that they don't believe it. Right? Essential context. That's exactly how I read it, but, you know, my bias is showing, right? Saying in a news release, the PAC Act had driven much of the increase in disability compensation. We talked about this last time. The PAC Act led to more claims being filed, claims being approved, and more money being given to veterans where it should have been going, right? It also led to more backlog in claims, which I give the numbers to that in my blog post as well. There's a huge backlog. Okay, there's a long wait, an average of 4 months. Some know that it's much longer, but that's an average. Okay, it's proof, according to Mr. Tanaka, that veterans are finally accessing the benefits that they are long owed. Then the post goes on in the little paragraph below. found that exploitation of VA's disability program has worsened under the watch of both political parties. Veterans do not care about that. We do not care about which political party is in charge. We don't. Okay? Nonetheless, some accused the Post's reporting of being politically biased. Well, it was, in my opinion. So this is your retraction of that. You hit a retraction in the middle of your article. Good job. I'm proud of you. Okay? Then they go on about how they got more than 5,000 comments. They like these articles, veterans and people who are pro-veteran, because we clicked on them, commented on them, called them, emailed them, and posted them on our social media. They will continue to write articles like this because the last two, the two articles last week generated an unusually heavy reader response, right? All about them clicks, baby. Not about the truth. All about them clicks. Okay? Then they go on to talk about how the issues the Post has brought up is only the tip of the iceberg. And that's probably true. I would argue that corruption goes way deeper than whatever fake fraud that you're making up in your brains. And again, fraud occurs at the VA just like it occurs everywhere. Probably at WAPO too. I'm just going to say that. Fraud occurs at WAPO because you just say fraud occurs here. Right? But every major government organization that deals with this much money, and if I have to tell you this, Washington Post, that's sad. Okay? But I feel like I do. But if we're dealing with this much money, fraud's involved. Fraud's involved. Right? They talked to some international psychologists that worked for 3 years in a mental health organization where an unlicensed clinician essentially guaranteed a diagnosis of post-traumatic stress disorder for veterans seeking VA benefits. You're cherry picking. Where's the proof of that? Where's the proof of benefits received? And you can't just get or like say you have PTSD without going to the VA doctors, talking to someone, and then you have to have a comp and pen exam with an outside doctor because they farm that shit out now, right? To what I would argue are some are qualified, some are way not qualified, okay? And then that's part of your decision for comp and pen. So I don't even know what the fuck you're talking about here. I don't think you know how the claims process works. And if you don't know how the claims process works from start to finish, including denial and appeal, then you can't say that every veteran's a fraudster because this one psychologist said that they could guarantee a PTSD diagnosis. This is a fucking wild segment of the damn article. It's wild. Did it happen? Probably. Is that an issue of fraud? Probably. Does that mean that everyone with PTSD does this? No. As someone with PTSD who took years to get into the system, this is offensive. Highly offensive. Apparently, this person filed a whistleblower complaint about her former workplace, the VA's OIG, Office of Inspector General, and received a boilerplate reply. You mean like every government organization when you email them about fraud? Okay. She told the Post she let the matter drop because she's prohibited under law from disclosing information about individual patients. Oh, so we didn't get what we wanted, so we hide behind the Hippocratic Oath. Got it. Got it. More like we hide behind the oath of hypocrisy, because that's what I'm reading it as. Again, I'm biased. Yeah, but I admit it, unlike the Washington Post. And then they talk about a veteran who was receiving a bunch of payments from the VA that they weren't supposed to receive. And they kept telling the VA, hey, stop fucking paying me. And the VA didn't. And apparently that's proof of fraud. This is the worst written article ever, right? And I read a lot of news, right? For those of you that know me, I read and watch and consume a lot of news from the left, the right, the center, Al Jazeera. I don't give a fuck, right? I do not care. This, Mr. Whitlock, you should not have written this article. But I'm glad you did, because it gives me something to talk about in another video and another blog post to make for me, for my tiny ass little audience that I love, right? But this is awful. This is awful. So let's talk about, let me go back to my full webcam because you guys love my beautiful face. And please ignore the mess in the back. I have 3 kids. So let's talk about a response to this shit. Okay, again, I did write a response, and I'll go over some of that, right, if you guys don't want to read it, okay? This is not an investigation piece, right? It misses the mark completely, right? They're painting veterans organizations as obstructionists now. They're saying, hey, they don't like it that we wanted to hold the VA accountable. What the fuck? Veterans organizations and veterans have been wanting to hold the VA accountable for decades, right? Again, so flat out false. Veterans want accountability. We want transparency. In fact, we've been begging for it for the VA for years, for decades. What we do not want is another round of cherry-picked narratives that make it sound like that we are the problem. Are some of us the problem? Fuck yeah. But we as a group are not the problem. Okay, the article leans heavily on the idea that veterans groups push back against investigations into fraud. They use selective quotes, minimal data, and a whole lot of loaded phrasing, because that's what the media does, not just WAPO, right? To create the illusion that we're trying to hide something. Veterans are hiding something. But the truth is simple. Most of us are tired of being painted as suspects instead of survivors. Again, we finally got something good going on with the VA. A little bit of improvement here, a little bit of improvement there. And it's always at the whim of a lot of different moving parts, right? Because the budget is set forth by the government. It could be taken away. It could be added to, whatever, right? But stuff like this is unnecessary because it accomplished nothing. Nothing at all. Other than your clicks. Right? Like you said in your own article, Mr. Whitlock, your own article. Oh man, these 2 articles. Woo-wee! We got a lot of response. Hey, we need to start a little make fun of the VA section of our newspaper, because that shit gets a lot of clicks. Pissing veterans off gets us noticed. I don't think you want that kind of attention, WAPO, but hey, you do you. Because your cherry picking doesn't equal journalism. This isn't journalism at all. My blog is more journalism than this, period. Okay? Here's the reality. Oversight should help, not harm. This is my call to solutions, okay? Because I'm always a solutions-oriented person. Accountability and reform is the goal of every veteran when it comes to the VA, okay? We've been the ones pushing for faster claims, more transparent appeals, and honest communication for decades, okay? But when oversight becomes a media spectacle, WAPO, it stops being about improvement and starts being about blame. You want someone to blame, okay? But let's focus on what's important. The VA's backlog is not news to anyone who files a claim. Currently right now, there's over 626,000 pending disability claims, okay? 134,000 of those roughly are officially backlogged, okay? The average wait time is 123.4 days. Some wait much longer. It took me 15 months, right? And some will even say, wow, 15 months, I wish, right? And that's just for the claim that I just finished. Before that, 7 years. 7 years. Okay? Does that sound like a system drowning in easy approvals? Even with improved systems, they're not just approving everyone. It's not a wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, you're approved. That's not how it works. Okay? The Post paints a picture, again, of the same-day decision, referring back to the first article in my first blog post. Okay? At outreach events. That was such an egregious claim. It was fucking detached from reality. Okay? I think they watched a movie where that happened to someone and thought it was real life. Because they were hanging out with Aaron Rodgers and were on a bunch of ayahuasca or some bullshit, and they thought that was real. It's not. But it's a headline that sells, baby. Woo! Let's tell veterans they can go to an event and get approved in one day. Stop it. Stop it right now. If you want the truth, talk to the people living it. Okay? The authors could have spoken to veterans still waiting after multiple rounds of denials. They could have talked to caregivers, like my wife, who takes time off work to drive me to appointments because I don't drive anymore due to my condition. Okay? They could have talked to me. Yeah, I would have been nice to them. Maybe. They could have looked into the emotional toll of a system that treats paperwork like proof of pain. That's a bar. It's in my blog. But they did not. They chose those stories, because those stories don't fit their narrative. They don't fit whatever they're trying to paint here. Okay? Cherry picking sells, empathy doesn't. Okay? This series of articles misses some key things on the big picture. Veterans are not asking for a free ride. Nothing that we earn is free. Nothing that we get during our time in service or post-service is free. We earned it with our blood, our sweat, our tears, our minds, and our bodies. I want to make that very clear. There's no free ride going on here. We're not asking for a free ride. We're asking for a fair one. We're asking for our government to hold up its end of the bargain. You want us to fight a war? You take care of us after that war. And it's taken us a long time to even get to where we're at now, and we ain't done yet. If you think we're done now, you're crazy. Fiscal year 2025. Okay, we want a government that funds veterans care the way it funds war or defense, right? Department of Defense budget topped out $926 billion. I don't even think that included civilian contractors. I have a lot to say about that, but we'll save that for another day. The VA's entire budget was $372 billion. A little bit more than a third. Unacceptable. Meanwhile, private defense contractors like Lockheed Martin, Halliburton, and BlackRock continue to profit from war while veterans fight for scraps of care after it's over. This is the real scandal. How about we talk about how the Defense Department spends its money? And I'm not talking about salaries of actual troopers from E1 to the Joint Chiefs. Okay? Because that's money that should be there, right? How about we talk about the amount of money we spend on research and development? How about we talk about the money we farm out to civilian contractors? How about we talk about the amount of money earmarked in our defense budget to send to other countries? How about we talk about that? But no. The VA fraud is the problem. And I'm not saying VA fraud isn't a problem. Any fraud at the VA should be rooted out and cut away. Because as we know, if one case of fraud is found at the VA, a major newspaper is going to write 4 fucking articles about it and try to make it a headline. So we have to be more careful than anyone else. We have to be more careful than the president. We have to be more careful than Congress. We have to be more careful than any department in the government. Veterans, hear me on this. I'm dead serious about this. We have to be right all the time. Because the second we're wrong, shit like this happens. The second one of us is wrong, shit like this happens. By our own media. Journalism should expose power being used incorrectly, not punch down on those being abused by the system. Washington Post's mission used to be about speaking truth to power. Now it's about half-truths about the powerless. And I mean that when I say that. No one is saying the VA should be immune to scrutiny. In fact, the VA should be scrutinized the same as every other government organization, if not more. But that scrutiny must be fair, informed, and rooted in evidence. Otherwise, it's not oversight, it's scapegoating. Okay? Investigate the leadership failures, investigate the contractor kickbacks, investigate the billions in consulting fees that never reach a veteran's bedside. But stop pretending veterans are the problem just because we refuse to quietly accept your narrative. Are some veterans guilty of this? Again, I'm going to say this over and over again because I want to make it clear. My point is clear. Some veterans have done this. Some veterans have committed fraud. Some veterans have defrauded the VA. Some groups have defrauded the VA. Absolutely. But is it all of us? No. And we're not going to sit by quietly and let you say it is, because that's exactly what you said. We are not hiding. We are waiting. Veterans have nothing to hide, at least the real ones. We've already been through the hardest kind of vetting there is. Signed a blank check, payable up to, including our lives. We came home, some of us, tried to rebuild, found ourselves in a system that takes years to even acknowledge what we sacrificed, right? Y'all waved your fucking American flags, put your yellow ribbons around your trees, remember 9/11 once a year. But when veterans need care, you ignore it. When we speak up, we get accused of gaming the system. When we speak up, we're told we're all committing fraud. The Washington Post and any other news organization can write as many hit pieces as it wants, but it won't change the truth. Veterans do not fear accountability. We demand it. Not just from a media machine that lost sight of what integrity means, and this is a lack of integrity by Washington Post. We demand it across the board, from media, from government, from each other. Real reform starts with honest storytelling. Something that I can no longer come to expect from the Washington Post. The kind that listens, not lectures. The kind that seeks understanding, not outraged clicks, which is what the Washington Post has successfully done. If the Post reporters want to understand veterans, they should talk to us, not about us. Talk to us, not through us. Until then, I'm going to be here. I'm going to be telling my story. I encourage all my veterans to tell their story, whatever they're comfortable with. Right? There's some things I don't divulge and tell because I'm not comfortable with it, right? But what we can't do is be silent. Because the moment we're silent, ass clowns like the people at the Washington Post win. And their lies become truth. Their lies become accepted. And again, I'm not hiding. All my links are in my bio. I'm a disabled veteran, total and permanent. Raising my kids the best I can, trying to be the best husband I can be. I don't make money off this because I can't make money. Right? I'm not allowed to make a certain amount of money because total and permanent, right? Isn't that how the rules are? I'm fine with that. I'm trying to navigate life as a disabled veteran, and I refuse to watch a news organization tell me that I committed fraud. All right. 35 minutes. We did good today. Let me know your guys' thoughts down in the comments. I know a lot of you will have something to say. Okay? A lot of you will have something to say. And that's good, but remember the rules, right? Respectful disagreement is fine. We can have a little bit of fun. We can be dicks and assholes to each other all we want, as long as we bring it back around and say, hey, this is what I mean. This is what I'm saying, right? Stuff like that. I'm fine with that. Okay. Those of you on YouTube, you guys know YouTube will censor your comments. I don't delete anyone's comments. The only time I will block anyone from this channel is if we're being anti-veteran in terms of hateful comments, right? Racism, sexism. I get rid of that immediately. But I want you guys to be part of the conversation. I hope you guys like and subscribe. I hope you guys enjoy videos like this because I'm making them more and more because it's stuff like this makes me feel better, I guess, getting it out there. But I want to hear from you guys too. So thank you guys so much. I will leave the links to everything down in the description, and I will see you guys next time. Thank you.